Hello, hello, everyone. Hello, those who joining us today. I'm Irene Lyakovetsky. On behalf of FinOps, I am opening this new exciting event regarding FinOps adoption, regarding FinOps future, and regarding challenges that company facing. So today is wonderful day to address to our audience. So when you joining us, please let us know. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what's your interest in FinOps. Are you already a practitioner, or maybe you're just starting the journey? Maybe you just came to a random event and you want to learn and to be aware what FinOps is all about. So for me to spell out, and I almost starting every session with the definition, because some people mistaken FinOps for something with fintech. Okay, so I'm gonna ask my esteemed guest today, Benjamin de Mora, to spell out some definitions for us, so we're all on the same page. So let us know, please, in the comment, what is it that brought you here? Let us know where you're from, and we're gonna get going. Benjamin, welcome.
Thank you very much, Irene. It's great to be here. And yeah, there's a lot of confusion around. There seems to be a lot of confusion still around what FinOps actually is and what it isn't, right? And part of the problem with that is that actually the term FinOps is older than the usage we have for it. So it's, you used to refer to financial operations, right? And that's not what this is. This is it also is not kind of financial optimization or that kind of thing. It is a combination, a portmanteau of finance and DevOps. So if we look at the DevOps life cycle, at no point across that life cycle does it mention anything about value or cost efficiency or resource efficiency. It's all about kind of the ongoing iteration and ownership of improvement. But it doesn't actually talk specifically about understanding the impact, the cost impact of what you're doing. So that's what Cloud FinOps exists to address.
Perfect. So, Benjamin, you are the best guest to discuss the state of FinOps with us today. And the reason is because of your role with FinOps Foundation. All right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for putting in the comment couple of links. We're going to get there. So my guidance for this talk is the state of FinOps 2022 report. Okay, so we're not going to show report. This is a conversational session, but I really want to ask you, what do you see this year, and how do you think we're going to go into 2023 in terms of FinOps trends?
Yeah, so we saw some interesting changes and also some interesting things that sort of remained the same in terms of challenges from last year to this year. One of the things that remained the same, and that I think is definitely an area that needs a lot more sort of focus from the community, from everybody involved, is that the top challenge still is getting engineers to take action on cost optimization, getting the usage optimization efforts to happen. And sort of unpacking why that might be is an interesting challenge, because ultimately I'm an engineer. I've been an engineer for most of my whole career. And one thing I can tell you is that engineering teams do not sit there without anything to do. Engineering teams are taking action all of the time and usually working far longer hours than many other people. Engineers are taking action all the time, right? And they take action on things that they are, first of all, prioritized to do, and also things that they have a clear path to achieving and a clear data to support their activities, right? I think those two areas are still something which we need to support more of, right? We need to give engineering teams themselves the context, the immediate response outcomes to the decisions they make based upon, their architectural choices, their engineering choices, the level of load on systems, and whether or not that's actually delivering value for a business. And that information needs to be timely, it needs to be easily consumable, and it needs to be highly contextually relevant in order for good decisions to happen, right? If we start to do that, then we have part of the problem kind of addressed. The other part of the problem is the fact that cloud allows us to demand ever-increasing levels of delivery from engineering teams. We used to be in a situation with data centers where we would be waiting months for hardware to arrive and to be deployed. I used to be a data center principal. I kind of lived that world, right? And it took months to get kit delivered and racked and stacked and cabled. We can now have an idea over coffee in the morning and have a proof of value built by lunchtime. in cloud, and we can have everything we want straight away, which means that there's an even further pressure on building all of the time on engineering teams. There's this instant gratification thing. And if we want engineering teams to kind of lift the pedal on that a little bit and focus actually on improving the efficiency of what we already have in place, we need to sort of balance those priorities out a bit better than I think is happening in many cases.
Absolutely. So, it's exciting to really see the big amount of data summarized in the report. All right. And again, I encourage everyone to check after these sessions. Don't go anywhere now. But State of FinOps report that we're referring to is informative in every way in terms of the adoption challenges, in terms of the industry and roles. And it's just valuable information everywhere I look in the report. So why don't we touch on some of the challenges there? Because again, there's great graph there. We're not going to discuss the graph because again, this is very conversational. But to me, it's quite amazing to discover how those trends are changing, what people starting with and how again, over time, they find this adoption. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the second kind of challenge that people are meeting is that trying to forecast cloud spend is still super hard. And that's to be expected. Because it's a completely different world to historical sort of technology spending forecasting, where we would only be having maybe a quarterly purchase cycle or maybe even a monthly run rate cycle, right? Whereas now, engineering teams and businesses are committing to spending in cloud every minute, pretty much. Every few seconds, cloud is being built on a per second basis. We're having deployments happening multiple times a day. CI/CD pipelines are continually building with engineering iterations. So forecasting that world is really challenging. And it requires a very different level of discipline. Some of the work that's been done by some of our amazing working groups within the FinOps Foundation community, led by Alison McIntyre and others, delivering some fantastic insights into ways to more effectively forecast with cloud spending. So FinOps.org, there's a whole load of stuff about forecasting on there. I think that's going to become a real art. That is going to become an art and a science going forward into the next year, because it is really, really difficult to do. And you need to really collaborate and integrate a lot more. It's far more complicated than just kind of looking at what you spent over the last 6 months and drawing a dotted line going further into the future and saying that's probably going to be what we're going to do. There's a lot more context required than that. So forecasting is a fun area to dig into as well.
Any best practices there? Yeah, can we dive deeper? Because forecasting coming up, is a recurring topic in these discussions. Yeah.
So I mean, in terms of forecasting best practices, the most important thing is to share context, right? The most important thing is to understand what's going on underneath the hood. So, in fact, if you go to FinOps, I'm going to put a link to the page right now into the LinkedIn event chat. Did that go through? I think it went through. I'll do it again. Didn't go through. I'll put it into this chat here instead, and maybe you can post it. So, accurate forecasting cloud costs is a challenge because you need to have good cost allocation to know where the money is going. That's difficult in many cases. You need to have very clear understanding of where the money is being spent. You need to have good context in terms of the service roadmaps, in terms of the commitment expectations for things like savings plans purchases or committed spending purchases, to ensure that you factor in not just the efficiency drives for reducing like oversized resources, which are going to reduce the costs, the roadmap for products that might increase the costs, the commitments that might be purchased against existing platforms that might reduce the costs, the increase in demand from customer base, which might increase the cost. There's lots of different facets that need to be considered in order to effectively forecast. So there's lots of things that upward and downward pressure that affect what that's going to do. And it's much more complicated than taking a view of past history and extrapolation.
Makes sense. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. So among of the challenges, I'm still on that point, automation adoption. All right. In my mind, the more I learn about FinOps, and especially FinOps on NOps platform. So automation is at the heart of FinOps operations these days. So question is, do you see adoption is growing within FinOps? I'm not going to be surprised to hear, either way.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is actually kind of incredible. I will tip my hat to all of the tooling providers, the vendors, and the cloud vendors themselves as well. Over the last 12 months, especially, we've seen a huge boom in improvements of facilitation for automating lots of different areas of FinOps, both in terms of identifying opportunities to optimize, and in fact, automating the delivery of those optimizations as well. So we've seen a huge improvement there. And actually, State of FinOps 2021, we saw that about 49% of the respondees to the service said that, or to the survey, said that they had little or no optimization in place. So that was for the 2021 survey. For the 2022 survey, that 49% of little or no optimization had actually gone down to 25% of respondees had little or no optimization, which is kind of incredible. That's a significant drop in 1 year of people that are not using automation. The primary things that are being automated right now, we're seeing lots more people doing more reporting automation, which is great, right? This is really useful because the faster that we can get the information into the hands of people who need to make good decisions based upon that, the more effective those decisions are going to be, the more time relevant those decisions are going to be, and hopefully the less waste we will see as a result of delay. The next thing, which I think is like super important, is tagging hygiene, cost allocation and clarification, knowing where the money is going and making sure we have good, clean data that refers to where our spending is going. That's like the second most focused automation effort that people are focusing in on, which is really, really good to see. And then things like third is spending anomalies. Spending anomaly, a cost anomaly could potentially present a significant threat to the business. Arguably as much so as a security breach. If you're suddenly accidentally spending tens of thousands of dollars more than you expected to be spending, and I've personally seen that kind of thing happen, all of a sudden, that's something you need to jump on very quickly. And automation of detecting those things is super valuable, really important. So this is a really good trend, and I expect to see that really accelerate over the coming year. I think that a lot of service vendors and also cloud providers themselves have really picked up the fact that they need to speed up the turnaround for solving these problems and to simplify that using AI and using machine learning to improve the accuracy of these things. So yeah, automation is important.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's a great summary, Benjamin. Absolutely. So let's jump maybe a little bit into adapting culture, because again, no technology will have an effect on business if again, culture is really not ready. So what do you see, like from your opinion, working with clients, working with all the FinOps practitioners and certified talent there, right? What do you see happening? What kind of shifts you've seen maybe in 2022 and what to expect next year? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've definitely seen an increase in prioritization from at the leadership levels of businesses in terms of, I mean, you need both directions. You need from the ground up, you need engineering and you need finance, you need individual contributors to be aware and engaged of the changes that need to occur. There are new ownerships that they need to embrace and adapt in order to successfully do this. But that can't succeed without executive buy-in, without leadership sponsorship. That's so important. And we're starting to see a lot more awareness at a senior level that this is not just a thing that can be done by a kind of team over here operating in an isolated bubble, kind of somehow magically fixing the cloud spend. This is a systemic and complete change to an approach from technology the cloud kind of precipitates. And as a result, yeah, we're seeing a lot more engagement from leadership around this and treating this as a high priority, which is great. That's really important because it really does smooth that transition into this approach if you've got holistic support to this approach. So that's something we've seen as an increase over the last sort of state of FinOps. So over the last 2 years.
What about other roles affected? Because again, No man is an island, all right? So you spoke about executive sponsorship. What about engineers accountability? What about people with FinOps in their titles and other developers and other engineers who just, of course, experimenting, making impact on business, but maybe don't have FinOps in their mind, morning, day, and evening. All
Yeah.
right? How that culture changing? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think again that comes back to this collaboration piece, right? And I think it's Warren Buffett that said that it's only when the tide goes out that you find out who's been swimming naked. It's effectively businesses that are able to collaborate, connect, and really work together across organizational boundaries and share the context, share the understanding. That's where we start to see real success, where we start to see people being able to operate at pace, make decisions at the pace of the cloud spending in order to maximize the value they're getting. It's where we see the biggest improvements is when businesses can kind of overcome those boundaries and do that. And that needs to happen not just at leadership. Again, as you said, it needs to happen across people. Procurement need to understand what their new part in the picture is, right? Finance needs to understand, but so does project leadership and program management. They also need to understand that if they're pushing for a new delivery, a new iteration, or whatever, there needs to be a cost implication attached to that that's based upon some form of reality as opposed to an extrapolation from past events. So there's lots of these different pieces, and it all comes down, I'll keep saying it comes down to context and collaboration. And yeah, supporting that growth as we go forward is really important.
Yep. And you know what? We always come in FinOps conversations, we quickly come to educational part of it, okay? Because
Yes.
it is a relatively new discipline, all right? Not long ago, we used cloud cost management term, all right? So FinOps, still people get it like confused with some other areas, all right? So what's the best education for, I would say, those who just starting to educate themselves, or maybe who wants advanced practices and the best cost planning and the best forecasting and the best showbacks and chargeback techniques? So what are the best resources? Again, we're gonna put the links in, but it will be important to hear from you, Benjamin, on this.
Yeah. So first and foremost, there is an enormous amount of knowledge available on FinOps website, FinOps.org website. There's loads of stuff in there, all the outcomes from all the working groups focused on things like forecasting, like adopting FinOps, like avoiding pitfalls and problems, all of this kind of thing. This is all on that site. It's all free to consume. The YouTube channel for the foundation contains recordings of all of our monthly summits where we will focus in on either tooling and vendor showcases and showing how they solve problems, or we'll be discussing a particular area, FinOps community, or other challenges. So the YouTube channel is worth having a look. Of course, the FinOps book, which is worth having a read if you've not read it, Cloud FinOps book with J.R. Stallman and Mike Fuller. The new release of that, second edition of that, is in the pipeline, due to be released early next year, and that's going to I think it's about another double the size, or nearly double the size of the previous book. There's a lot more in it, and the content that's in that book has come from our community. It's come from the knowledge that we've collectively gathered across our sort of 8,500 strong member community. So in terms of the learning, there's so much knowledge that's available to consume now. One of the other things that we do, and in fact, because we're a nonprofit organization, we're a nonprofit foundation, we're primarily funded by our training programs, and I'm one of the instructors. So if you want to actually go and do like an instructor-led training course, and you may or may not get stuck with me, in which case, sorry. But yeah, if you go to learn.finops.org, and I can put that link in the chat as well. I can't post there at the moment for some reason, but I can put that link in the chat in the comments and provide that. But it's learn.finops.org, and you can go and you do practitioner training, or you can do sort of persona specific training as well. We've just launched FinOps for containers for Kubernetes and so on, that kind of thing, which is very specific to that space. So yeah, there's lots of ways you can engage and consume content, but there's a lot of very smart people in the community who are always having lots of active conversations.
Perfect. All right, to send people off, to get better, to understand, other aspects that they may not be familiar right now. I love sharing success stories, Benjamin, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe working with some of the organizations, just could you share the project that went on right? How about that? When there may be the proactive planning happened, okay? I'm just giving you some tips here, of course, right? When
Yeah.
team really got together, when there is common understanding and like good discipline, a way that it's not on a way of innovation, okay,
Mm.
where people still have the power and resources to experiment, but at the same time, right, there is a good culture around FinOps discipline. So that way, when they spend, they know where exactly resources go and they achieve the results they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share an experience from my own sort of personal history when I was doing some consulting and supporting building FinOps practices and best practices across Europe. There was a Nordic business that I was talking to and working with there, and it was actually quite entertaining. There was a DevOps manager who came to me and said, "I have an issue that this has caused me because one of my engineers, we've given our engineering teams all of this information, and one of my engineers got very carried away with this and has actually gone off of his own back and done a lot of work to optimize an area of compute. He's evidenced the amount of money that he's saved as a result, and he's provided that as a year-on-year or month-on-month saving." And it was like something like $10,000, something like that, dollars a month that this one engineer had individually managed. He's had a good idea and gone, "I'll just do this and replace this whole stuff that we've built with an off-the-shelf SaaS offering that just does the job for me and saves a lot of money, and this is great." He'd gone and done that, and then he'd gone to his manager and said, "Look, I've just saved $10,000 a month. I'd like some of that, please." I mean, that to me, when that kind of thing happens, that's amazing, right? When the direction of the conversation changes, where you start to see, instead of the centralized FinOps team kind of handing out the recommended savings and saying you're wasting money here and you should be saving money here, whatever, when it starts to get to the point where engineers are given the relevant information, they can see what needs to happen, they get a good idea, they do it, they engage with the engineering challenge that is, maybe rethinking the architecture that they're using to be more cloud native, save a boatload of money, and they go to their boss and say, "I've just done this." That's where we know we've succeeded, right? As soon as you start to see that happen, we should fanfare that as much as we possibly can, because going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation about getting engineers to take action, as soon as that kind of thing starts to happen in an organization, the organization effectively, you've got a great momentum to support in that place, and that does happen, which is really cool to see. So in terms of a success story, I mean, I can't point to, I don't really think that it's relevant to point to business XYZ saved such and such amount of money because they did FinOps. I think one engineer having a great idea, doing something off of their own back, presenting it back and saying, "Look what I've just done, I'm brilliant." I think that's where we start to see real success. We start to see real ownership from the engineers, and they start to realize that actually they have a massive amount of power in the success of the business. So
Exactly. And all the new tools, of course, NApps is one of them, really enabling people not only feel accountable, but also have a stake. Have a
yeah,
stake in the game, right? That's what you're describing, right? When you
yeah,
really
totally.
see the impact that can be quantifiable, there could be some competitions, okay? One team versus another. I don't know, some gamification elements, even, right? Everywhere
Yeah.
we're talking with data. Yeah.
Yeah, never underestimate the power of the incentive of free pizza and beer. It's always a good thing, right?
Here we go. Here we go. So I guess we were trying here to promote some of the innovative tactics out there just for people to get to understand their business better, right?
Yeah,
And to get to understand where exactly resources going. And once we kind of become personally accountable in a good way,
yeah,
right? This is incredible motivation. I mean, yeah, everywhere I've been before, looking at the data, it's not just actionable data that people above you, commanding you to do certain things. That's not a good motivator. Okay, what makes people tick is really, right, that I have this stake in this game, I have the impact, right, and I can bring better results, for myself and everyone around me, right?
yeah. And the second of the principles of FinOps is that people take ownership for their cloud costs, right? Or what does this word ownership mean? What do we mean by that? You really don't own something unless you understand that all of the angles and the implications of decisions you make about that thing. So if you don't know what the infrastructure that you built, you support, that you run is costing, and also whether that cost is actually delivering some kind of a value to the business? Is it costing 5 times the amount of revenue it's generating? Or are you actually delivering some benefit for the business? Knowing that and being able to evidence that, that's ownership. That's real power. And that's what we need to support our engineers to do. So that kind of, I see that happening more and more. And I think that that's what we're going to see lots more of in the coming year. It's going to be good.
Yep. You mentioned maturity, right? There is this principle, crawl, walk, run, right, for FinOps adoption. And in the report that, again, we're going to encourage everyone to look at after this session, right? The link is in the LinkedIn event where you're watching us, hopefully. So there are great numbers out there. How do you promote FinOps adoption in the organization? Okay. And gamification actually is one of the items there in the report. So it was not Irene Lyakovetsky who just invented it in the air. That was already accounted for and even measured. So please have a look at the report, because it has a bunch of insights from every level, including, what are the best tactics in an organization that people finding useful. Don't you think?
Yeah, the other important thing as well is that if you're a practitioner of FinOps right now and you are working and you're solving these problems, I would encourage you to follow the link at the top of that report to take part in the new survey for this coming year that's now been launched. You get a free T-shirt if you complete the survey, which is great, which is very important because free T-shirts are life. But go and complete the survey and contribute your insights and your experience and your knowledge to the next iteration of the insight of the state of FinOps, so that we can see that information too. So
Absolutely. And once you're all knowledgeable about latest findings and good trends for the future, get started with FinOps on NApps. There is link here on the banner. All right. There is great demo and group of experts waiting for you to reach out and to answer any questions and to really start with FinOps, because again, there is no risk in your organization. This is free to get started. And at the same time, it really will change your thinking. It will change your thinking around cloud spend. And again, it's no matter how much, literature you've read or how many classes you attended. Knowledge is not power until you start applying it. So please get going with the apps over there. Benjamin, thank you so very much for your time today. I know you have to be engaged somewhere else at this hour. Yeah, absolutely. So in conclusion of our talk, again, thank you. Wonderful and very insightful, knowledgeable conversation today. Could you please summarize few takeaways from us? This is my favorite. Okay, I love the guests to kind of verbalizing, right, the important points of the conversation at the end.
Yeah, so I would say that first and foremost, if you're doing this, if you're doing FinOps and you're feeling a little isolated, maybe you're not part of the community, definitely get part of the community. Join the foundation. It's free if you're a practitioner to come and join FinOps.org. We have such an incredible community of very smart people. We've grown to 8,500, I think, members now, which is amazing. The Slack is constantly going on with lots of questions and discussions. We have lots of busy working groups solving problems like sustainability and green ops, things like standardized billing data, things like the social aspects of FinOps is coming along as well, to your earlier point about culture. Lots of things to get involved in and lots of interesting groups to be a part of. And also, last but not least, if you fancy a huge party in San Diego, then you're in luck, because that's where we're having our next annual summit next year at the end of June. And if you go to x.finops.org, you'll see all about that. So I'll be there. So if you fancy having a chat with me in person, that's where to catch me. But that's going to be quite an amazing experience, I think. I'm looking forward to it.
Fabulous. Just to iterate once more, all the resources out there, all the knowledgeable experts out there. So it's all within the reach. So after this session, so please share this event with your peers, with your network. So more people will watch the video, more people will get, wheels going on FinOps discipline. Benjamin, thank you so very much for doing this today with us. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure. Thanks, Irene, for having me.